after the movie was over, Frankie was like, "Is this movie racist?" And I was like, "I don't think it's racist, but it's just I don't know." Like, so because of all of that, I'll probably say Dune 2021. It broke even.
My, what a difference 3 years can make, because I feel completely different about this movie and the source material now. And welcome to my Safe Gayven, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining me and clicking on another video here on the Black Gay Comic Geek channel. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, hey, how's it going? Let me introduce myself. My name is Michael. I call myself the Black Gay Comic Geek, and I always say the things that I love to talk about on my channel has blood, sex, gore, and magic. By the way, if you love blood, sex, gore, and magic, and you want to get yourself a shirt, a mug, pillowcase, whatever, click the link below, go to my merch store. You can get a shirt that says, "Welcome to my Safe Gayven," a Black Gay Comic Geek logo shirt, etc., etc. I got a shirt that says, "For the All Gay Rhythm." Check out the merch store, support your boy. But with that said, you can also support me by checking out the other videos on my channel. And I like to talk about superheroes, video games, comic books, nerd stuff, all things with blood, sex, gore, and magic. And of course, I like to talk about black representation and queer representation. So if that's something that you're interested in, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Help me continue to grow this channel. You can also help me to continue to grow this channel, whether you're subscribed or not, by hitting the like button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm, getting this video out there, getting my channel out there so I can continue to grow. So with that said, we are here to talk about the second installment in the Dune, I guess it's going to be a trilogy. This is Dune Part Two, directed by Denis Villeneuve. And it's funny because I just recently went back and rewatched my review for season 1 or Part 1. And I was just like, oh, I've never seen a Denis Villeneuve movie. I need to change that. Like, I have Arrival on Blu-ray, never seen it. Sicario, never seen it. Blade Runner, never seen it. I was just like, oh, I'm definitely going to go check it out. 3 years later, I still haven't watched my Arrival Blu-ray. I'm a terrible person. But anyway, Dune is based on the very popular book that came out in 1965. It's a series of books, and let me say this, because just like I said in my original review in 2021, 2021, I've never watched the Dune movie. Prior to seeing these two movies, I knew nothing about the Dune franchise. I didn't even know it was a book. I know nothing about the Dune world. I know a little bit more than I knew when I first reviewed this movie, but I still never read the book. So this is a review based on not knowing anything about the book or anything really about this world other than what I've gotten from these two movies. Because I know there were people that were mad at me for my first review because I said this movie felt very white savory. And they were like, this person clearly doesn't know anything about Dune. Yeah, I said that in the beginning of my review, and I'm saying it again. I know nothing about the franchise. But anyway, so let's talk about Dune 2. So for those of you that don't know, if you're like me, you only know the movies. The synopsis for Dune 2 is: Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the universe, he must prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. And it's funny because, like I said, I went back and rewatched my review for Dune 1 to see what I said. And honestly, I did feel like I gave Dune 1 a C pretty much. I was like, it broke even for me. That was the rating those are the ratings that I used back then. Because I was just like, I felt like it was 2.5 hours of setup. And I didn't feel like with those 2.5 hours, I feel like there was a lot happening, but nothing happening at the same time. And then I also added the fact that it felt very colonizer themed. The character of Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, felt like a white savior character. And I will say, like, I still kind of feel that way in this second movie. And I'll get to that later because there are some caveats with that. I still feel that way with this second movie. But going into this second movie, this movie was epic. I absolutely loved this movie. This movie was intense. This movie was jaw-dropping. This movie is a pure sci-fi movie, if anything. If you love sci-fi, you will absolutely love this movie. And honestly, this movie made me want to and made me appreciate the first one more because obviously the first one was all set up, and now this is not all the payoff, but the payoff for a lot of that setup. Now, I will say I still kind of feel the same way I felt about the first movie, where I was just like, it still did, even though, yeah, it was a first movie and it was set up, it still didn't feel like a complete story. Had you not have gotten this movie, the first movie still wouldn't have been as good. You need this movie to make the second movie better. And so I still will say that's a complaint of mine for that, because yeah, like for example, Into the Spider-Verse is a setup movie, like, because obviously they're going to get into Beyond the Spider-Verse, but I can still watch Into the Spider-Verse and still enjoy it as a one movie in and of itself. Granted, I still want to see the conclusion and the continuation of the story, but I can still see it as one story. I watched Dune Part One. You could tell, like, it's not a complete story. And considering it came out during the pandemic and things like that, you didn't even know if you were even gonna get a second Dune movie. But with that said, like, Timothée Chalamet in this movie definitely elevated his performance and role and significance as Paul Atreides, and my love and excitement to see the character in this second movie than compared to the first one. Because the first one I was just like, all right, whatever, it's interesting. Timothée Chalamet is doing a decent job. But in this movie, he stuck his whole Shalamussy into this role. Like, once you get into the lore, and I get the movie is about being weary and a warning of charismatic characters, but even despite that, I was still rooting for Paul Atreides. I love that character. He was one of my favorite characters. And the reason I said this movie still gives white savior vibes, and it's true, because a lot of people do say, like, this movie is about a warning of white savior characters, a warning of charismatic characters. So because of that, it is a white savior movie. But I would say that if you only know the movies and you don't really read the books, it doesn't translate as much, at least in these first two movies. I don't know what's going to happen in book 3 or movie 3, but I will say, like, Paul is a white savior in the sense of, like, and the reason I say it doesn't translate as much is because he's not like a mediocre white person that somehow rose to prominence and rose to this deity level status of being the Mahahadib. No, like, he's still the best fighter, the best strategist, the best person to do this, the best person to do that, the best leader, the person that has the power of the voice. So at every moment, you're telling me that he's super qualified, but then you're saying it's a warning against charismatic leaders. Like, there's one thing to be a charismatic leader and still be problematic, but so far, I'm not seeing, like, he's the best. So, like, I don't know. It's just, so I will say in that aspect, it doesn't really translate as well of, like, being, like, warning against charismatic leaders. But at the same time, this movie itself had all the charisma, all the riz, as the kids say nowadays. Like, especially the score. Speaking of, like, I talked about Timothée Chalamet sticking his Shalamussy. Hans Zimmer, he stuck his Zimmerussy into doing, like, Hans Zimmer has never done a bad score, but the score for these, especially these first two Dune movies, especially more so this Dune movie, was just like, especially because I got to see, how many times I get to say, I say especially, but like, I saw this movie in IMAX, not just regular IMAX, but also I saw it in 70 millimeter IMAX in the biggest IMAX screen, I believe, in the world, which is AMC Lincoln Theater in New York. And oh my God, like, just seeing the beauty and the scope and the vastness of this world counteracting and in addition to the Hans Zimmer score and the sound that you get with IMAX, like, clean up on row B, because I was like pre-coming the whole time watching this movie, just visually. Like, oh my, like, I totally want to see this movie again. Like, I could put this movie on mute and still have a great time with how cinematic this movie looked. And kudos to the cinematographer. I'm not sure what his name is, but he's the same cinematographer that does The Mandalorian, Greg Fraser. You think about how epic and vast and high, quality The Mandalorian looked. Now add that with a much bigger budget on top of that. But the same thing I said about the first Dune movie in terms of, like, the acting and performances, everybody took it up a notch. Like, especially because, the first movie, we didn't really get to see much of Zendaya. Timothée Chalamet's character, Paul Atreides, was just dreaming her, seeing her in his visions, but now we actually got to see this character. The chemistry between Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet, I thought, was great. I enjoyed every single moment that the two of them were on screen, and they were captivating the whole time that they were on screen. And then even Zendaya without Timothée Chalamet, like, Zendaya in general is just a great actress, So that's not surprising at all. But like, and we were talking about after we saw this movie, between her roles in the Spider-Man movies and now her roles in Dune, this woman is set for life. She never has to work ever again. And I will say, because I did start to watch a couple of YouTube videos explaining not so much the story of Dune, but just the lore and the politics. And it's so complex and so intricate. And a lot of it you don't necessarily get from the movies. And so in some ways you do find yourself somewhat lost because there's a lot of backstory and history and lore and politics and all of this stuff interwoven in this very complex story that is hard to do in even 2.5 hour movies. But I do feel like you kind of get enough where you can kind of understand what's going on, but at the same time, you do still need some of that extra backstory and stuff, because there were certain moments that I was like, what's happening here? And then I watched a YouTube video and then I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or even like, there's 3 families, the Atreides, I don't remember, but there's 3 of them, but they don't really get into the third one that much. They kind of touch on the third family in this second movie, but you don't really get a lot from them. But then when you watch the YouTube video, it all makes it like, this world is just so vast, and I want to like jump down the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole of the Dune lore. Probably not going to read the book, but there's a lot of YouTube videos that are out that I'm probably going to more than likely watch and binge just to get more into this lore, especially considering there's like, it takes place like hundreds of years after Paul Atreides and all this other stuff. I'm just like, this is crazy. And I've seen a lot of people compare the epicness and vastness and expansive of the world and compared it to like Lord of the Rings. Like Lord of the Rings is like top tier in terms of fantasy. Like every fantasy show or movie or anything like that is trying to live up to Lord of the Rings. And I would say, yeah, for Dune is the sci-fi version of Lord of the Rings in terms of its epicness and scope and just sheer awesomeness in terms of these first 2 movies. Granted, obviously, the third movie can end up being trash, but just based on these first 2 movies, like, my God, like, I want to see this movie again. I want to go back and rewatch the first one now that I have that context of the second one and can appreciate the first one more. Like, this movie is damn near perfect. Like, I have no real complaints. Like I said, I did have my small complaints about, like, yeah, you still need this second one for the first one to be as good. It still has some of the whole white savior tropes in it, especially considering that a lot of the characters that are worshiping Paul are brown and people of color. It's a lot of Muslim themes. It does give a lot of colonizer vibes, but this movie is so good that you forget a lot of that. And it's just like, what's going to happen next? And then Austin Butler playing the main villain, Fayyad, whatever. He was great. He was so charismatic. He was so intense. He was so frightening. Like, and then the lighting design, the choice, like, oh my, like this movie just looked so incredible. Like if it was food, I would be salivating right now. But just thinking about the movie on that big ass IMAX screen, I'm just like, I'm kind of obsessed. I'm kind of obsessed right now. I see what the lore and the appeal is in terms of Dune now that, you know, I've gotten to see this second movie. Because like I said, if you watch my first review, I was just like, I thought it was okay. I'm not that excited about the second movie. I would still check it out, but I'm not that excited based on this first movie. Now I'm just like, screw that review. Like this second movie, my God, like give me more. If you told me that I could get Dune 3 tomorrow, I would be like, give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me. But yeah, this movie is just, there's so much politics and so much, like, it feels like a universe. And then how manipulative the Ben Gesserit are, and Jessica Ferguson playing Lady Jessica, and like, oh, like, it was just so freaking good. And like, I don't know what else to say about this movie. I definitely recommend people check it out. But I will say, since the 2021 movie was 3 years ago, I will say watch that first movie, because I didn't go back and watch the first movie before I saw this. So there were some things that I forgot because it was 3 years ago. It was also like the pandemic was just ending. And then also there's so many things that I've watched and binge watched and consumed since then. I kind of forgot a lot of the things that happened in the first movie. So I would definitely recommend, before you see the second movie, rewatch the first movie, the 2021 movie, so that you can go into this movie more fresh. But I definitely recommend you check out Dune Part 2. I cannot wait to see Dune Part 3. Hopefully Part 3 isn't even the last one, because I feel like there's so much more story to tell that you can't even really tell in 3 2.5 hour movies. And so With that said, if you couldn't tell by my recommendation, I definitely recommend you check out Dune Part 2. But with that said, once you get a chance to see Dune Part 2, if you've even read the books, what do you think about Dune Part 2? How does it compare to the books? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, if you can, check out the other videos on my channel. If you like what you see, please subscribe for more. Hit that bell notification button so you're alerted every single time I post a new video. And guys, today, Monday, February, the 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be going live to talk about episode 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix. And then every single Monday after that, I will be going live to talk about each subsequent episode at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So join me again, hit that bell notification button. I will be joined by special guests, and then depending on their schedule, maybe they can't do it every single week. Maybe I might just do it by myself. And so hopefully you join me in the chat so we can have a very fully interactive live conversation about Avatar: The Last Airbender. So again, hit that bell notification button. If you like what you see, please subscribe for more. And also hit that like button. It'll really help with the YouTube algorithm and getting this video out there and getting my channel out there. And tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.